Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to What's Happening Dracut. Today is Wednesday, April the 5th, 2013, and we are raring to go. We are coming to you live from our overly ostentatious studios here at WCAP, I was going to say, at DATV, but we are here and we're live and we're raring to go, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope that you are too. And Sirius is catching up. I got phones ringing and people are banging off the hook here. We're ready to go. We have in studio tonight with our ace reporter who's been under the weather a little bit. Richard Silvio.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm great.
Well, my allergies are acting up right now, but John, according to you, I'm 9 years old. You said it's 2013.
Oh, is it? 2023. Did I say 2013?
You did.
Oh, God. I'm really screwing up.
You're a little
here.
rusty, John.
A little rusty, but not
We'll
too
be
bad.
dropping bombs by the end of the night.
Was 2013 the last time you appeared on this show?
It might have been. It might have been. Or maybe that's the year that they wished I had dropped dead because I've been around for so long, right? But Phil Tebow's in the house.
Hey, how are you?
How you doing, Phil?
Wonderfully.
Everybody ready? You're excited?
We're excited for everything.
No, we're going to have a great show tonight. We have a lot to talk about. Phil's got a lot to talk about. I've got stuff that all pent up anger and pent up energy and what have you. And we got the Teflon Dawn of Dracut Access Television, Gordy Scott.
Hey, it's good to be back. It's a long winter sports season for us.
Yeah. We were tied up with other things during November.
But I do have to mention, I do like this tie, and you got the Trump socks.
Oh, yeah, we got the sock. Look at these. I'm raring to go when we get to the national politics. Look at those socks. We're ready to go. We're all in for Trump, right?
Yes.
All right. So a couple of things to note tonight that we are live, and if you wanted to join in the fun tonight, you can call us at 978-957-4243, and you'll be live on the air with us. No holds barred. Come on in, and you can also join us by being on Facebook, if you're not already watching us on Facebook, because we are live on Facebook. We can also be reached by going to DATV's website, which is Dracut Television DraCutTV.org. I always screw it up, but that's because we want to really bring attention to it. So if you want to get involved with the fun, just come on down and give us a call as soon as you can. We do not tonight, unfortunately, have a weather report because Sean is on assignment somewhere else tonight and wasn't able to make it in for a report, but we'll get him to do something for the next show.
Hey, if I can jump in here.
Sure you can.
I wanted to give a shout out to John at Dallas Park. I was at Primo's and he stopped by and said, "Hey, you're the guy on television, aren't you?" And I said, "Why, does he owe you money?" I didn't say that, but I thanked him very much for watching. He loves the show, and he says, "Keep doing the good work."
Hey, that's awesome, Phil.
Oh, gosh.
Right? There is nowhere I go that in the Dracut area or in Lowell that somebody doesn't recognize me as being that guy on the show. You know? Do you get that when you go to Market Basket? Or?
Yeah, actually, people say, "Gordy, stay on the show. Keep doing what you're doing."
Yeah.
You got to make sure that people realize what's going on in the town.
Well, not enough people do, and not enough people get to watch us. So we need to really try to expand that. Do you get that, Richard, when you're out in the...
Well, I only surround myself with people who are familiar with me. I know. In fact, I'd like to give a shout out. I won't say her name because she'll blush next time I see her. But that beautiful blonde, and I'll use her own words. Half of me is Polish, the other half is smart.
Oh.
She knows who she is.
Is this a love interest, Phil?
Oh, sir. I love her like a sister.
Like a sister. See, folks, he's getting quick on his feet. Before he used to turn red when we said stuff like that and get all flushed out, but now he's really quick on his feet. Phil, let's talk about a new partnership that you and I have taken on with Lowell Concern. You are now writing for InsideLowell, right?
Yes, I am.
And what is your involvement with that?
So my involvement is I'm a corporate sponsor. Philip Tebow Architect is a corporate sponsor of InsideLowell. And part of the deal was that he wanted to also get media content to be able to publish, and so I've been writing a few articles. The first two were fairly political, and I know that's not the direction he wanted to go, but it's stuff that had to be said. But my last article was called 40B or not 40B.
There you go.
So it did talk about the 40B process a little bit and some of my thoughts on it.
So, Phil, having saw you get involved in that the way you did, and I was, liking a lot of the things you were saying, obviously. But I got a phone call about 3 weeks ago from Teddy Panos, giving me an interesting proposition to become, make a new partnership between myself as an individual writing for stories for InsideLowell, which is now also called Inside Dracut, because he's expanding. And what they're doing is as you said, they need content, and they want people that are going to be writers, because this is going to be the medium, folks, that is going to replace medium like print medium like newspapers.
Oh,
Newspapers are a thing of the past right now. As you can see, if you pick up the local Lowell Sun, you'll see that it's thinner than ever, and most of it is Associated Press stuff. So he made a proposition to me about partnering up with me as well as this show and providing content, because it's good information that comes out of this show, and it's all obviously information that is contrary or pushes back on what the political forces in town want you to believe. So we give another side. Sometimes we agree with them, sometimes we don't, a lot of times we don't. But the bottom line is we have now expanded our reach. Unlike any other shows here produced at Dracut Access Television, we now have an outside source, and we're starting to expand even more. Some shows, Phil, like to put automatic clickers on to click on their show to get a lot of likes and we don't do that, folks. We don't get involved in that kind of stuff. We played with somebody for a little while about that, but just to see what would happen. We do a couple of extra clicks, and all of a sudden they had 10,000 extra clicks.
What I like about Inside Lowell and subsequently Inside Dracut is that it's really timely, and it's fairly quick pace. So there's always something churning in there that you can go there twice a day and see something new and something interesting.
Right. So it's an important part of our resources for people here in Dracut, particularly you, the taxpayer, the voter, the person who might be having a 40B being constructed next to your property, and the town really doesn't want you to know about it because they want to negotiate in the dark so they can get some benefit out of it. But we want you to know this stuff. We want you to know when there's going to be a project next to your house or in town that's very detrimental to the town itself. So let's jump right in. Before we go any further, is there any current events that we need to announce, or has there been any passings or anybody's birthdays that we need to talk about? If not, we're going to move right along. I don't think there is, so we're going to go right into the next subject, and that is we're going to talk about Dracut's upcoming town elections that really isn't really a town election, because there is no candidates other than the ones that are incumbents or uncontested seats. So the election, ladies and gentlemen, is on May the 6th. It's a Saturday, and that changed, Phil, during the COVID, right?
Last year, correct. So last year's election was also on a Saturday, and that had to also do with the availability of the buildings for essentially at the school complex, because they've been congregating all of the precincts except for precinct 6A, and I think 1, but everything else is at the Richardson Middle School.
Correct.
And so the building isn't available during the day because of school.
Are we live on our...
Yes, we
are. Okay. Keep us up to date if anybody's commenting or needs to chime in and they want to say anything. You can also comment on Facebook. So the election was changed because of COVID and a lot of other reasons too. So we're moving forward on that. But this year's elections are pretty uneventful, right? Gordy, you've heard that there are no challenges to the Board of Selectmen, right?
Yep.
And
based on past elections, you would understand why.
Why is that?
Because
expound. Inform the voters. Give the voters a little more information.
Well, it just seems like the same old people, the same old buddies, Town Hall West, the same people win over and over and over and again.
And-
And then if you run, they drag your name through the mud. We won't mention any names of the people that do that. They write articles in their newspaper.
Oh, we'll mention names. Maybe you won't mention names, but we will mention names. We will mention.
And so why would anyone want to run when their name gets dragged through the mud and, so.
Are you talking about the one Brian Genest?
Yes.
Yes. Well, Mr. Genest has got quite a reputation around the state, not only in Dracut. I bumped into a selectman in Tewksbury who I'm friendly with, and he was quite upset, saying that there's a person in your town that wrote a story about him and involved him in an election in his town, and he was on the front page of the Lowell Sun. Did you know that? Did you know that he was supporting another candidate for representative in that area? And of course, Mr. Genest trashed everybody that didn't support his candidate.
Doesn't think like he does.
But his candidate went down resoundingly in flames, as usual. The only candidate that he supports that ever wins is typically his wife, and she's won one election so far, and she, in my opinion, strictly my opinion, she just went totally hog wild with making promises and saying she wasn't going to be part of the good old boy network, and before the election was even up, she was hooked up with that lucky group over there on Lakeview Ave, right? So she's hooked up.
Yeah, so at that point, she was lucky enough not to have a record.
Right. And now.
And so, and I think, and certainly she did, the due diligence of knocking on doors and campaigning.
She was going to win without
a record.
Right.
It makes it a lot easier.
But she was going to win that race based on her work.
I would think
she
so.
was working very hard, and but they managed to trash any candidates that might potentially want to run, and they managed to trash people who do run. And if you're not 100% behind what their agenda is, you get killed.
Let me let you in a little secret.
Sure.
They trash you even if you don't run.
Yeah, seeing you, like in your example, genre. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They want to trash you because you want to be. What's wrong with having a candidate, and I don't care who the candidate is, and I don't care if you run 1,000,000 times. What's wrong with having opposition that will increase the amount of debate over how the town should be run? Right? What's wrong with that, Phil?
Absolutely nothing.
But they don't want any candidates, right? And I'll give you one example. I gave you one already about Allison Genest. And Allison Genest is running for re-election. She's the chairman of the board. She's connected to the hips of Joe DeRocco, right? And when she was running for office, she swore she wasn't going to be involved in any of that. But she's more involved in all of that. She lets him do his thing, and then she hides behind the curtain and says, well, I'm not responsible for what Brian writes. It's your husband. It's your husband. How can you say you're not responsible for what Brian says? And there's a picture of the lovely couple that are on vacation somewhere many, many moons ago. But she's running for re-election. And one of her main things that she put in her announcement is that she was the person who pushed forward for goals and goal-setting process, which is kind of, she kind of resurrected it, but there were goals being set before her. I mean, she, reinstitutes everything. She tries to bring up stuff that just existed long ago but went by the wayside, and now she brings it back up, and it's a goal setting. And one of the goal setting things on her paraphernalia and in her speeches was that she was going to be opposed to any new taxes or fees. Did you know that, Phil?
I did know. I heard that from her
You
anyway.
heard that from her. You were a candidate against her. And you were one of the candidates that got trashed to the hilt, right?
Absolutely.
How do you feel about that?
And continues to get trashed.
You continue to get trashed.
I have a tough skin, so I can take it.
Yeah, that's right. But you're not going to go away just because you get trashed.
Absolutely
there are those
not.
like
Absolutely not.
Richard, he'll kowtow and go the other way.
You never tricky dick, you never know.
No.
But no, I mean, it's funny that, excuse me, the allergies, it's killing me.
Yeah.
Oh, don't need to start that. I'll be the next one on WCAP.
Yeah.
Better be careful. But it's funny to me how you could have somebody who's head of the town Republican committee, right, be so adamantly against freedom of speech and everything that the Republican Party is supposed to stand for. I had business that took me to Westford a few weeks ago, last month or so, And I had spoken to a woman who is on the state Republican committee. Never met her before in my life, right? We started talking. I told her how I was from Dracut. And she said, "Oh, you must know Mr. Genest." And reluctantly, I kind of, I twiddled my thumbs and I said, "Why, yes, actually, I do." Next thing I know, she went on for 30 minutes about how damaging he is to the town of Dracut and how damaging he is to the state Republican Party. And frankly, I couldn't agree more. When you're against freedom of speech and you're against every principle that the Republican Party stands for, how can you accurately represent the party?
Yeah.
How can you?
Well, we'll get a little bit more into that as we go on, but one of our goal settings was that no trash fee, no fees, and no new taxes. And what was the first thing she went in and voted for and supported?
Was it the mattress?
A fee to collect mattresses. So, it's a fee. It's a tax. What, are you kidding me? And so they're chipping away at all of the things that you used to be able to throw out and have picked up by the trash company, right? So now you got to pay for everything, and now they want you to pay for the mattresses. So what do you think's going to happen just by
They
the
want you to
fact
pay
that
for
they're doing
FOIA
it?
requests too.
What's
now.
that?
They want
Oh,
you to
they
pay-
want you. That's because of you and me and everybody that's had asked for FOIAs in the past. They want you to pay if it's going to cost everything. And of course, there are other people too, like K.O. I'm not even going to mention his name. He went after Tony Yachinsky big time and cost the town thousands of dollars in research for bad stuff, trying to drum up bad things about Tony Yachinsky, which obviously never worked because Tony got reelected overwhelmingly. But to get back to this,
So let me extrapolate on that one. So she's okay with a fee for mattress recycling.
right?
And I believe she said during that meeting that we pay our taxes, and we're going to be, if we don't have this fee, we're going to be picking up everybody's trash, and I don't want to have to pay for somebody else trying to get rid of a mattress. But if you draw that out, well, I don't want to pay for. I only want to pay for what I'm throwing out, not what you're throwing out.
Right.
If I only throw out a half a barrel every week, I don't want to pay the full barrel price.
Right.
So I think she's in favor of pay as you throw.
Oh, there's no question in my mind that eventually the trash fee is going to rear its ugly head again. Especially now where later in the show we're going to hear about how the budget is going to be in trouble in the next couple of years. And that is mostly because we have gotten flush with money over the last 2 or 3 years because of COVID, and now everything's being pulled back and we're starting to progress back up to where we were pre-COVID, that now the budget's just not going to sustain itself. It's just not going to happen. And things are going to start getting really rocky over here. And you're going to hear some of that later on during this show. But can you imagine somebody that says no, anything they say, you got to believe is going to be opposite. Because she said no fees, and now she's for the fee. And I believe she'll be for a trash fee eventually too. It's unfortunate, but this is a person that's going to get reelected because she's on the ballot with another person whom I think is one of our best selectmen currently on the board and running for reelection is Heather Santiago Hutchins. Now she is without a doubt a person that does her research. She's very articulate. She asks all the right questions. She's running for reelection, and there's her picture on the screen now. Wonderful individual. And, we want to see her get reelected because she pushes back. She's on the short end of the stick with Tony Yachinsky on most votes. And because the troika, the threesome, the person who said she'd never get involved in
the triad.
The triad. And the person who said she'd never get involved with the bad politics of Dracut, she's the head of the bad politics of Dracut. Next to her compadre, Joe Duraco, who's the most vengeful, political, revenged guy in the town. He wants to rule the town like he is the boss, and he, quite frankly, is the boss at this point. He runs everything in the town, and there's nothing that happens without you kissing the ring of Joe Duraco. I guess I'm never going to get anything done because I've never kissed the ring of Joe Duraco and never will.
John, on the topic of Heather, You know, when I see her, it's usually spontaneously.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I always see her?
Where?
At veteran events in town. In the past year, I saw her at the opening of the veteran housing over on, which street is it? The old center school.
On Spring Park Ave.
And then, of course, on Veterans Day as well at Veterans Park. I always see her supporting the veterans.
It's funny you should say that, too, because doesn't she attend the breakfasts at the veterans events, too? She was attending them, and there's something else going on with the veterans that all of a sudden other members of the administration are starting to show up because Heather's showing up. You know?
I can't. I won't speak on that, but because I'm involved with that. But
Yeah.
yes, that is true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
And she was a volunteer for the Scholarship Foundation
Right,
telethon
for many years,
Yeah.
and she was
she still
volunteering
is.
again?
She still is. She still is.
Yeah, and she's very, very intelligent and has a lot of expertise on cell phone towers and things of that nature. She knows her stuff. And, I mean, she's very diligent in research, and she makes sure that the town is trying to do things right. And it just boggles the mind that some of the stuff that's going on, that she pushes back on, that they don't want to talk about, and we're going to get into that in a minute or so. But she's up against, her and Tony are up against a wall, and they don't want nothing, they don't want to give them anything that's going to make them look good, right? So we wish her well, and we wish her to be obviously reelected overwhelmingly. The other thing that's going on in town is the school committee race for the single seat, and that's Renee Young.
Yes.
Right? She's running for re-election, and do you know Renee?
I don't know.
You
her,
don't?
no.
You know Renee, right?
I know Renee. Yes.
And she's running for re-election, and obviously she's the chairman of the board right now, and she's going to get re-elected, and we'll see where that goes. She's also a school teacher, if I'm not mistaken, right?
In another community.
Yes.
Very good. So we wish her luck. And let's see what else is uncontested. Oh, Linda Truville. Who is a
Library trustee?
Library trustee.
Yes.
She's unopposed, and George Nagel at the Housing Authority is unopposed, which boggles my mind as to why no one wants to run for the Housing Authority. It's probably the board that does the least amount of work in town. They meet on what, once a month?
Yes, I think it's like the third Monday of the month,
Right.
typically.
And what do they talk about?
You would think housing stuff. But
Yeah, all they do is.
But
Probably a good guess.
How much could they be talking about when a meeting lasts 10 minutes?
Yeah, exactly.
So-
Well, we'll get back to the Housing Authority in a minute, but let's just move on to the Water District, which is also an election on May 6th. And that election was being set up to have three people running for one seat. Bill Moran, who has been there for 1,000,000 years, he's like a dinosaur, and he's been there for about as long as dinosaurs were around. And
He
I like
he predates the water.
he does. And Bill went in, you recall when Bill went into the water department and became a member of the commission. Do you recall when that happened?
Oh,
He was a rebel rouser
Yeah,
back in the
did-
day.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden he became part of the system, right? And typically when you become part of the system, what happens? You become just over and over, you just keep doing the same things,
it's
right?
time to move on.
It's time, and it's time for him to move on. So he's moving on, and so there was a challenger who drew papers for the nomination, and that was John Hudzik. John Hudzik is a former employee of the Water District, whom I think probably would have been a great candidate, right? And maybe because he would have been such a good candidate, there were rumors being spread about him. The vicious rumors started immediately because, oh, he's a former disgruntled employee and all that stuff. No, you couldn't say that, oh, maybe he has expertise in the water department and maybe he just wanted to be involved to see that the water department was run right.
Yeah, he certainly would know where some efficiencies may be.
Right. But no. They got to trash him right away. They got to pull out that dirty, revengeful politics because they can't control him. But anyways, there's another person who's running in that race, and that's Peter Natsios. And Peter's a great guy, very intelligent. He was the clerk of the water.
No, moderator. He was moderator of the water
okay, he was
district.
the moderator of the water district. And he was going to run before but withdrew. And now he's back in the race. And I understand that Bill Moran did not return his papers and that John Hudzik withdrew. So there's no race there, so Peter Natsios will be elected.
I thought Gay Corey had to run again.
That's a separate seat.
I
And I was going to say that, Gay Corey is running for the remaining term on her husband's term.
Yes.
The remainder of I think it's a year or so more left on her husband's term, so she will be running for the unexpired term, and she's unopposed. And there is a clerk's seat open who, amazingly enough, is the clerk of the town, Jane Boissonnet. You would think that somebody would be somebody different than the clerk of the town, but Jane's a very capable individual, and she'll do a good job, and she's done a great job. I attended the election where Gay Corey took for filled the seat for her husband until there was an election, and that's what they're doing now, and now they're going to have that election. So I'm sure Gay will be re-elected to that seat. One of the things I wanted to talk about that we there was something I missed here. I'm kind of losing track of my thought, but the Dracut Water Supply District election is on the same day, and their town meeting is on the 8th, I believe, which is 2 days after the election, their regular town meeting.
So that would be on the
Monday.
Monday.
The 8th, yeah.
Monday.
So there are other things we want to talk about, and some of it involves other parts of the town, right? So there was recently there's a rumor out town, by the way. There's a rumor that's pretty strong that you remember that the town fireworks were not going to be allowed because of the new field at the high school. Now, Phil, you're a pretty good judge of land masses, right? The school complex is what? Is pretty, it's a pretty big
The entire complex is 65 acres.
65 acres. And how many acres is, let's say, Veterans Park?
You know, that's a good question. If I had to take a guess, it might be 10-ish?
Around 10,
to 15.
I believe. So, 65 acres at the school complex and 10 at the Veterans Park. Let's put that on hold for a second. So, all of the time during this last 4 or 5 years as they've been canceling the fireworks, they haven't wanted to do the fireworks. And now they come up with all these excuses that, you know, the fireworks at the school complex is too dangerous. It could hurt the new turf field that we spent millions of dollars on at the high school, and it's just not feasible to do it there because of all of the possibility of ashes dropping on the fields or dropping on homes, what have you, and causing a lot of damage and causing some fires. So they couldn't do it. So fast forward a little bit, somebody had suggested going to Veterans Park. Said, oh no, we can't go to Veterans Park because that's way out of, it's too close and whatever. Well, lo and behold, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen has been in charge or charged with, supposedly, grabbing the bull by the horn to resurrect the fireworks. And where do you think the fireworks are going to be held?
Veterans
Dylan
Park.
McGann's-
Veterans Park. And now you got a 10-acre parcel with very little parking as compared to the school complex. They're now in a densely populated area. Houses very close to the park, but they're going to have the fireworks at that particular park. And I understand that Louise Tremblay, who I'm really disappointed in, has I'm disappointed in Louise on a number of fronts, right? One is this front, and I'll save the rest for later, for another time. But she seems to be involved in all this stuff because she likes to be the person who is well-liked, and she wants to be, important in the town because she runs the
Beaverbrook
the
Community
Beaverbrook
Gardens. Yes.
Community Gardens,
Yes.
which I've had a couple of complaints lodged against that on how abrupt certain people are about the gardens, which we'll get into another time. But Louise is now part of this whole thing with Miss Janess about jamming it in that neighborhood. Now, allegedly, they sent out notices to abutters. I haven't heard one abutter. I haven't talked to anybody yet because I just heard this. but they're going to now put the fireworks in Veterans Park.
What could go wrong?
I mean, what can't go wrong?
Everyone's going to be parking across the street where Brothers and
Frobies.
Yangs and Frobies is, and that's going to interrupt their, disrupt their businesses, right? Because they serve well into the evening hours.
Well, they might think it's nice. Some of them might think they'll get spillover business.
Maybe.
You know?
Well, Veterans Park has certainly been in the spotlight lately.
When is the night for what do you call it? Public safety night?
Oh,
That's the end of June.
that's usually at the end of.
Do you know that's the night they're going to do the fireworks? The same night as the public safety.
So
They're going to incorporate that.
Certainly as you ignite these fireworks, the general public needs to be a certain distance, and I'm not sure.
Where are they going to be?
I'm not sure how they'll be standing in the parking lot, and then you. I don't know. There's not a lot of room there to keep distance.
Well, let's complicate it a little bit more. Let's talk about how they're going to bring in all these food trucks for the night out with the public safety. They're going to bring the food trucks into the park. Then they're going to bring people in to see the fireworks and to celebrate the. I'm not opposed to them having the public safety night. It's a great thing. It's National Night Out or whatever it is, and it's a good thing I'm a big supporter of public safety, police, and fire. But to do it on the same night as the police and fire, to do it at Veterans Park, which is 1/6 the size of the school complex, and now to jam that in there on that same night just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's too much happening all at once.
What do you think, Gordy? I mean, how many people go to the fireworks on the 4th of July? Usually a couple thousand.
Oh, easily.
I would think.
Easily.
Right?
Yes.
And we're going to put them in Veterans Park?
It's not going to work. I don't know how logistically how you're going to pull that off.
Now, I live maybe, I don't know, 3 city blocks away, probably outside of the, or close, but
You're close.
outside.
You'll be able to sit at your house and watch them.
I'll be out there with a fire hose to make sure that my house doesn't catch on fire.
Right.
Right?
What type of a strain does that put on the volunteers of the night out? Because these people are going to show up an hour or so early, and they're going to participate in the night out as they should.
Yeah.
But based on the volunteers I saw at the last one, they don't have enough people on hand to handle that many people, a crowd of that size.
Well, I don't know. I'm sure that Janest has done something to talk to those people to make it a cooperative effort, but it's just amazing that we got to hear about this stuff through grapevine.
So you said notices went out. Is that a notice to ask for comments, or is just the notice that, hey, by the way,
This is happening.
we're having fireworks?
I don't know what the notice was, but
Because it sounds like,
supposedly-
hey, we're having fireworks.
supposedly there is an abutters list that was, all the abutters to Veterans Park were sent a letter, and that there has been comments made that there has been no pushback from the abutters. But don't you recall, and I'm sure Pop Warner will recall this, when we wanted to put lights in that field, that the first person to stand up was Joe DeRocco and says, when we negotiated that park being there, we agreed to side with the community, the citizens, the abutters, that we wouldn't have loud noises, we wouldn't be late night, we wouldn't put lights in, and all of this stuff. And he fought Pop Warner. People forget that he fought Pop Warner. People forget that, there's people down there that just didn't want Pop Warner in that. They wanted it to be a passive park.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think they've essentially disallowed carnivals and fairs. And wouldn't this night out and fireworks kind of be a fair?
I would think. We're going to get into more about Veterans Park a little bit later, but I wanted to move on from this subject just to drop that little bomb on everybody here about fireworks, and I think Richard just found out about it today. I'm
did.
wondering how the veterans are going to feel about fireworks in that park also.
I will have to consult the body,
Right.
and then once that happens, I'll come back with a report.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about an open meeting violation. Did you know there was an open meeting violation at the Board of Selectmen? Did you know that?
Well, there's hundreds of them.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
I know.
one
but-
was actually filed.
Yeah, there was one filed by Justin George. And Justin said that he wanted to that they're having these executive sessions where they just post at the executive session, and here's the reasons for the executive session, but they don't post the actual information on what they're going to discuss in the executive session. In other words, if you're going to have an executive session for negotiations of the pipe fitters union, right, Phil?
That's right. Yep.
Do they have to post that they're
Pipe-
having negotiations with the pipe fitters?
Absolutely.
Or they do just a generic?
No, you
I
have
was
to-
on the Board of Selectmen, and I know we had to do that,
Yep.
right? So what's your feeling on that?
It's a violation.
It is. So, Gordy, so they put out meetings in the past. They've used this maybe for 6-8 months that they didn't post what the meeting was about. Let's say it's a lawsuit. I know that David Chartrand had a lawsuit, Justin George has a lawsuit, there's another 50 lawsuits out there that they don't post. That's what we're discussing on that night. If you're going in there for union contracts, or you're going in there to discuss the contract for the manager, it's understandable. You're going to go in there and talk about it and do what you have to do. And then you come out of the meeting and you announce that you didn't make any decisions in there, no votes were taken, or if there were, they redo the vote out in public, right? Yeah. And but none of that occurred. So Justin caught it, and I know, Phil, that maybe a year or so ago you had the same type of an issue, didn't you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it was because they weren't listing what they were going into executive session for. It
Right.
was, what is the specific reason?
Right. And you did you file a complaint then?
I believe I did.
You
I
did?
believe I did.
And what was the outcome of that complaint?
I don't recall.
recall?
Oftentimes, ethics may not get back to you on it.
Yeah, the Attorney General's office doesn't sometimes, and what they do is when you file an open meeting law violation, you need to file it with the AG's office, and then you also have to file it with the Board of Selectmen or whatever particular body is not following the open meeting laws. So Justin did that, and they brought it up at the last meeting, and I watched it today, as a matter of fact, and we have it, but I don't think we have enough time to play that. But the gist of it is that the meetings that Justin was talking about, or the meeting that Justin was talking about, that they didn't post the particular meeting, not the 50 or 60 meetings prior to that they didn't post properly. This particular meeting was postponed, right? And so when this complaint came in, they changed the posting, reposted it, and they mentioned what they were going to talk about. Therefore, their lawyer, the board's lawyers, said that, well, they didn't file anything on the prior meetings. This addresses just this meeting, and therefore we corrected it by posting it properly. And now there is really no action for you to take. So they get away with it.
Right.
So they get away with it again. So here's a guy, Justin George, who's fighting a battle on many fronts, and the town just keeps sticking it to him and sticking it to him. But the one thing that Justin did say to me, that he was very happy that at least they changed it, and and this is a statement that he made to me today. He said, I pointed out that the town never listed or never lists executive session minutes correctly, and they never post them correctly. And he complained to Allison Genest. He did not hear back, he said. I did not hear back, so I filed with the AG. He said the town read the complaint, addressed it, and changed it. I've never seen them do that before. It's concerning, but I'm just here to try to make things right and just help. So he gets it, and he's happy that they corrected it, and he's ready to move on, but they're going to do it again. Don't you think?
Yeah, they'll forget.
They will. No, they won't forget.
No,
They do it on purpose. They don't want you to know that they're going in there for, a complaint against Justin George, or a complaint that Justin George has got against the town. Same thing with, I wanted to bring up that there was erroneous information put out by the town manager relative to DATV's budget. So what is DATV's budget? We can talk as members of this community and as the community from what we know.
Yeah, so the contract that the town of Dracut signs with Comcast provides for a franchise fee, which is a percentage, and I believe in Dracut it's 4% of your video or your
cable bill.
Your cable bill. And that's put into a fee, sent to the town, and then the purpose of that money is only for cable access providers. So essentially, a corporation, much like DATV, if it's a separate corporation, or in some instances, there are communities that have it as a department, but it has to be used exclusively for that purpose.
Right. So part of it is just really, it's a pass-through.
It is.
Right? And but because the town has been engaged in what I would say, in my opinion, political retribution and trying to control content here at DATV, they now are going after everything down here that they can possibly go after, right? And tomorrow we have a meeting before the Finance Committee, and I'm going to reserve most of my comments until after we have that meeting with the Finance Committee. But pretty basic, it's government overreach. And what was established with that contract, and everybody knows about the contract because it was in the news for a long time, but Joe DeRocco has constantly, and his cohorts, have constantly come after DATV as a whole because of shows like ours that criticize government and might criticize Joe or might criticize Janest, and they want to control content. And it's a history of it. It's been happening since long before COVID, and we've got it all lined up and ready to go when we need to expose it. But it's certainly a lot to do with government overreach. Do you have that queued up where you can talk?
Yep.
I want to just dispel a couple of things that were said at the last meeting.
The other thing that crosses my mind is that I thought that they were autonomous, and I just don't know how.
Oh, they are. So they're an enterprise fund, similar to water and sewer and other enterprise funds that we have. And they do. They operate autonomously on their own, and we're simply an accounting firm for them. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And but part of that accounting firm means that we should have all of the revenues that are in place. So from what we understand, there is an account that has about $500,000 in it that really should be turned over to the town and put in the revolving fund to be used for their budget through the budget process in order to provide, an understanding of where the funds are going. So there's a little disconnect there. I don't quite understand why it doesn't. We've explained it to them a number of times. Why they haven't provided that, I can't answer that. But I will recommend that their budget be $1 this year in order to absorb that $500,000 out of their budget.
It utterly amazing that the manager would say what she said on a couple of things, on a couple of levels. Later in this conversation, she talks about how they sent us notices at DATV, right, about this. Well, with the establishment of the enterprise fund, which we agreed to, that establishment was set forth as a mechanism to pass the money through, not to control the money. And anything that was accumulated by DATV prior to the establishment of that enterprise fund is what they're talking about on extra money. We have a certain amount of dollars, and I don't think it's quite 500,000, but it's close. And it is in CDs, and it is in
Interest-bearing savings accounts.
and interest-bearing accounts that we couldn't get through Dracut, through the town of Dracut. And that money has been growing. Now, as an example, we were very frugal with the money when it was passed directly to us. We would be very cautious of how we spent it. We built that fund up to well over $800,000. And then, because we were using it to establish a fund for when we wanted to expand our studios and make the studios bigger and do whatever we needed to do to keep DATV solvent, that's what resulted in this beautiful studio and offices that we have were paid for without going to anybody to borrow money to do it. We didn't have to borrow money to do it like they do with CPC.
Right.
Right? We don't do that. We don't borrow money, we pay cash for what we have. So they want to now take the money that we've accumulated through our ability to save money in a good way, and now they want to put it in the town budget. And I know the end run eventually will be, well, maybe we can get some of that money for town uses. Because they've certainly done that with CPC money, which we're going to get into a little bit.
Well, I mean, I do remember when all this was happening that one selectman said, well, why do they have all this money?
Right.
And Tony Archinsky says, I'd be more concerned if they didn't have any money.
Right, yeah. So to say that she's going to give DATV propose $1, well, I think we got a little legal problem there because we have an agreement that says you're not going to do that. You know, that you're going to pass through the money. Go ahead.
Wonderful comment here from Josh Taylor. He says, she doesn't have enough money in her budget, so she wants to bleed the CPC and DATV dry. And frankly, that's what it comes down to.
That's probably what it comes down to. They've probably mismanaged the money to a point where they need to now, you know.
They need a bailout from DATV.
They need a bailout. Well, they're not going to get it from DATV, but we will attend the meeting tomorrow, and we'll see where it goes. And hopefully, cooler heads will prevail because this is heading down a bad road of it's government overreach. It's government trying to take something that's not theirs. We're not.
Same old.
Yeah, we're not. We are budgeted. If there was a budget surplus and what they passed through to us.
Yeah, if they gave us $500,000, we spent $499,000,
We'd
and there's $1,000 left over, we'd give
send
them
that
back.
back. Absolutely. That's what the enterprise fund calls for.
Correct.
But it does not call for funds accumulated prior to that fund.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to grab now. But this is all driven by one person, and that's the revengeful politician, Joe DeRocco. So we'll move on from there, and we'll go to the next subject, and the next subject is Gordy Scott. You've got a presentation about net school spending.
Yes.
So why don't you have at it, my
But
friend?
before we get to that, I just want to make an announcement about the power outage.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know, in West Dracut, so that's like the Tingsboro Road area, Mammoth Road, Nashville Road on the west side of Dracut over by the lake. They're doing some construction over there on April 18th, which is a Thursday night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I think they're moving power poles or something like that. So power will be out for 8 hours Thursday night, April 18th. So if you didn't know that, and you're trying to wake up Friday morning to get to work, you may not have power. Your alarm clock may not go off. So just wanted to pass that out there. I think they sent out messages to the people in the area, but you never know when the power goes out in one area. It might extend out into the tentacles might extend a little farther than they think. So.
And of course, that is sponsored by West Clocks Wind-Up Alarm Clocks. Get yours today, $10.99. Call the number right there.
Nice
on the
try.
screen.
Nice try. So yeah, one of the things that came up in the selectmen's meeting that was right before that, I think they were talking about the DATV issue, is that the state has redone how they do net school spending now. And Charlie Baker, before he left, they've increased the amount of funding they're giving to education, which in general, most people will think that's a good thing. And it's going up like between 9 and 10% every year up until 2027. So this year, Dracut is getting $24.3 million in Chapter 70 aid to the schools. So that means their total budget's going up to $39.1 million this year, which means Stephen Stone is very happy because now they can hire like 27 teachers. I think a Spanish teacher is going to be hired. But the problem with that is since that amount of the budget is going up so much, the town has to kick in more money to get to that point because the Chapter 70 is only $24.3 million. So I think we have a shortfall about $1 million this year. And I think they worked something out with Stephen Stone to pay for the resource officers or something like that within the school budget, so it's going to kind of be a wash. But the problem is next year, in 2024, they're going to be, Chapter 78 is going to go up to $27.2 million, and the net school spending is also going to increase. So now that difference is going to be about an additional $1.3 million, and it's going to continue to do that up until 2027. So I don't think they have enough money. They probably can do it next year, 2024, without an issue. But when we hit 2025, the town manager's going to have an issue with trying to allocate monies to the school. In 2026 will even be tougher because they're going to be like $4 or $5 million short by 2027. So what that means, obviously, is that our taxes can only go up 2.5% every year. So if we don't get enough housing or enough revenue coming in to match, if we don't increase our revenue by $4 or $5 million at least a year, we're going to fall short. So what that would mean is they're going to have to go with an override. So along with and I think also what would come with that is we don't have any money. We now need a trash fee. We need a water drainage fee for the EPA. We need this, so I think we're going to see a lot of
So they're going to
fees.
come to the voters for
I don't think they have a choice unless
an
a miracle.
override. Wait a minute now. They're going to come to the voters for an override for operating funds for the schools.
Correct. They're going to have to. I don't know where else they're going to get the money.
So if you're trying to gain another $4 million in revenue, a quick calculation on that is that we need $250 million of new growth.
Okay, $250 million. Is that
200
going to happen with
200
opening coffee shops
Five
and
more
donut
bakeries, John,
shops?
just 5 more bakeries, just 5 more.
No, 5 or pot shops?
And maybe a pizza shop.
Yeah, I mean,
Another Dunkin'.
But I mean, that what that's going to mean for the taxpayers? It's just going to be an override. And my question is if they go for an override and it doesn't pass, then what happens?
then there's going to be cuts.
They're going to have to
Cuts
cut
in the budget.
They're going to have to cut police officers. They're going to have to cut fire. They're going to have to cut DPW. They're going to have to cut.
I mean, I don't know how we can cut the fire department when Ann Vandal says by 2027 we're going to need another fire station.
Does anybody know
Well,
how much
we're-
money is in the rainy day account?
Yes, I have that.
I assume it's not enough.
Or rainy day, do you mean free cash?
Yeah, free cash. How much is in the free cash?
I had that.
They had
number.
over 10 million at one
Yeah,
point.
I think this year was at six or seven.
Yeah, it was like
So they've
six.
been draining
6
that
point-
down.
yeah.
It's been used quite a bit.
They've had over 10 million in there. And now the rainy day's coming, folks, and they're not going to have enough umbrellas
The big
to
flood.
stop the raining.
The big flood.
They're not going to have enough, right?
Yep.
It's just not going to have it. And the new growth that Allison Janess is so proud of in the economic development in the town is going to be bust because you can't open a pizza shop or a milkshake shop and think that those are going to expand the tax base.
I think one of the best years that Drake had had as far as new growth
Is the cannabis.
probably was about $50 million.
And that was what year who was the manager and what year
That would have
was
been
1947.
No, that would have been in, around 2015.
and that was Duggan.
Yeah.
That was when Duggan brought in
Right,
a
they were
$50
offering
million.
and they were offering TIFs and a lot of incentives to get these
Right.
businesses.
And the
to come
guy
in.
with the big picture thoughts and the big picture ability to get things done, they canned him. They canned him. For a person who can't tell you, certain parts of the budget, she needs to refer to somebody else.
And
Right.
so I think what they're going to end up doing is they're going to have to increase like the meals tax, which is small, a pittance. It's going to be that's like $100,000 or $200,000 a year.
Meals tax. Again,
Yeah.
I wonder how
Another
Ms.
tax.
Janess will vote on that.
Right. And then, cannabis, we get $1.3 million from cannabis, but we're out of licenses. We've already put the maximum amount of
And I
cannabis.
think some of that is coming from what's often referred to as impact fees. Those go away at this point, probably another 3 years or so.
Angel says that it's not a bragging point to meet minimum net school spending.
Yes,
Certainly
true.
not.
It isn't, but that's all we've ever done in Dracut, basically.
Well, it's a little bit over. I think this year we're like 2.9 million over, which is the highest we've been, I think, for a while.
For a while. Yeah. And, we're going to be on some very
So this year, I
tenable
think we're going to be okay this year, and probably next year. 2025 is when the rubber's going to hit the road, unless we get.
Right.
Maybe this 40B housing will help some, but I don't know.
Oh, I don't think it's going to help, which we're going to get into in a minute. But the 40B is going to is going to increase the amount of student population and going to make a bigger strain on the budget.
So certainly, possibly, and there are additional services, and you still, fire and police and whatnot, and you probably, the Murphy Farm project, which is, and we can get into that a little bit more, 300 units, you're probably looking at maybe $20 million worth of construction. So it's not a lot of new growth.
So Justin George says it's good to have you back, guys. So just want to throw that out there. He's watching, obviously,
good to
and
be
so
missed.
is other people.
Good to
We
be
have a lot
missed.
of people out there watching tonight. You know, we got hi Dan, how are you? We know you're watching, and Janice is watching, and we got Josh and Elijah and a bunch of people out there.
I won't say any names, but my eye in the sky at Dracut High School is tuning in tonight.
Oh,
So-
really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Rex Trailer.
No, actually, not Rex, not Rex, but
Okay, let's move on to the next subject if you're all set, and we'll talk about the 40B. The 40B project, by the way, that has put a thorn up the butt of the town manager, because rumor has it that she's very upset, Phil, that there is a citizen committee.
That the citizens are doing
God
something.
forbid there should be a
dare
citizen
you.
committee. She's very upset about it.
Well, I'm very
Terrorists.
And
fond of
it's hurting.
citizen governance.
It's hurting their negotiations. So tell us about the
So,
40B.
so for those who don't know, in the term 40B is often bantered around. The town, the state actually refers to it as a comprehensive permit. So in towns, you oftentimes have to go to planning board, then zoning board of appeals, and you have to kind of bounce around from board to board to get your approvals. Comprehensive permit directs it all to one board, and in this particular case, the zoning board of appeals. And so with the zoning board of appeals, you can ask for variances in lieu of essentially providing more affordable housing. So the state understands that if you're trying to make things affordable, you may need to produce more, so they allow a denser growth oftentimes, get more units per acre, and they can vary other different aspects of a zoning bylaw, which at first blush may look like like snob zoning. I think
Right.
people have heard that before. Dracut, I would not say has snob zoning, but it was one way to battle some communities that did have that. So,
Isn't there a state requirement to how much affordable housing we have?
so the requirement comes from your ability to appeal a comprehensive permit. So if a community has 10% of their housing stock as affordable, it removes the ability of a developer to appeal to the state housing board. Likewise, if 1.5% of the land of a community is dedicated to open space, and I have no idea how much that is.
Can I stop you right there? Can you imagine that the head administrator of our town didn't know about that? Didn't realize that that was part of it, and now the person who suggested to look at that was the person who was on the zoning committee,
Yes.
Heather Hutchings, who's now a selectman, or a select person, I should say, but God forbid if I'm not,
misgender.
politically correct or misgender people. But the bottom line is that Heather actually suggested it and talked about looking at the land mass, the 1.5 land mass, and now
Yeah.
they're going out and they're hiring a company.
paying a company to
They're
do
going to pay a company to come in and do it because they don't have the answer to it. How can you not have the answer to that? So you, Phil, and Tony, and a number of other people are involved in this community.
Yeah, so there's
Citizen.
a citizen group that formed called the Citizens Against Reckless Development in Dracut, or CARD for short. That they've been meeting, and their next meeting is April 17th at the Central Sportsman Club on Wheeler Road at 7 o'clock, I believe.
Right.
And certainly they're not against a development for affordable housing. It's this development at this particular location is too much. And I think the name of the group hits it perfectly. It's reckless. because it not only jeopardizes and is detrimental to the neighborhood that it's going into. I think the neighborhood that is going to be built, Murphy Farm, it's reckless for them too. And so as a development, it could easily go bankrupt because it just, I don't think it logistically works. 300 units of 4-bedroom dwelling units.
Is that in your architectural realm of expertise that you believe?
That is correct.
And if
That
you
is
had a
correct.
client that was going to propose this, would you be saying to them?
Absolutely. I'd say if you want 300 units, I'd say let's look at 2% 4 bedrooms.
Right.
I would say that you would go 60% 2 bedrooms, and then split the other 2 between 1 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms.
There you go.
Because it's honestly a 4-bedroom unit is probably going to run in the rent somewhere in an affordable case, probably somewhere around $2,500.
Can you? And I think you're understating it.
I might be.
You're understating it.
Now, mind you, that dollar value also has to consideration utilities. So that the number for affordability also includes gas, if gas is out there, electric.
So is that much? I've never personally seen a 4-bedroom apartment.
And you
Neither
don't.
have
You
I.
don't see many.
Yeah.
You don't.
Even in cities, you don't really see many
But that,
of those.
along with 14 bedrooms, Richard, right? Along with the 4 bedrooms per unit, that brings more people that are going to need services, particularly school children.
Absolutely, especially if this is affordable housing, and you have families coming in who are in need. As somebody who works with what you could describe as needy children in a school department, I don't know if Dracut is capable of handling a volume of that size. An increase like this to happen over a year or two, that could devastate the social services at Dracut Public Schools.
Right, and Phil, wouldn't it increase the amount of students in the system that would essentially make it that we need another school?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, realistically, if each unit adds 1.5 children,
Yep.
which isn't many, that's still 450 children coming into the system.
And what's the location?
Which is the size of a school.
What's the location of the this project?
So this project is on the easternmost part of Dracut. So it borders Wheeler Street, which follows along the Methuen border.
Correct. That's up by that's near
Go past-
St. Francis Church on the other side.
Even way past that,
Yep.
you're out by Brock's
Farm.
quarry.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
out by that area.
Okay.
So
Really?
You're at the furthest, other than being at Peters Pond, you're at almost the furthest reaches of Dracut in the east.
Yeah, you had something you want to say?
John, I've done some work locally, or at least I've spoken to locally the food pantry and Katie's Closet, who does clothing orders for needy children. And, both are amazing organizations, and I give them so much credit for what they do. But to have an influx like this coming into the town of all these people that could be needing to take advantage of these services, I don't know if they could keep up. And I think that's a serious concern.
So the entire development is not affordable. 25% of it's being done as as rentals. So 20% need to be made affordable.
Right.
So out of the 300, you're looking at 60 units
60 units.
that need to be at the affordable rate. The rest of them are at a market rate. Although what's the market rate for a 4-bedroom unit? It's I mean, you're in the
$4,000.
$4,000?
$5,000.
yeah. So I mean, at that point, why not just buy a house?
Right.
Yeah.
And Angel says that the Dracut zoning is in a chaotic mess. Well, Angel, do you think that could be because they don't have anybody on the zoning committee, or they don't have a lot of people on the zoning review and bylaw committee that has so much expertise in that particular realm? You know who the number one guy in town that, in my view, is familiar with those issues? Sitting right next to me. He's the guy that they prohibit. You know why? Because it's political revenge. Phil's not going to get on a committee that he's not already on, that they're not trying to push him off of. They're not going to put him on a committee because he knows more than them.
He's the Donald Trump of Dracut.
He basically is. And we're going to get more into this. And Kevin Tully made a very good point, by the way. He said maybe it's time to increase or have a split tax.
That's interesting, but typically you only do that when you have a lot of businesses that are in the 25 to 30% of
We're
of
like
your,
96%.
and
That's
we're-
never
we're-
gonna happen
no,
in
it's not going to happen.
So why can't you do it now? You could. But it
You
might-
would, the lowering of the residential would be so insignificant when you're raising it
Right.
on such a small portion.
It's
of
only like 4 or 5% of
So
it.
Right.
I just had one more slide that I wanted to show.
Go ahead.
And Nate, if you would put up the 40B listings. So these are the current 40B listings in the town of Dracut. And there's Murphy's Farm, 135, I believe. I can't see that. 135 Greenmont Ave. So that's been sent to the state. It still is looking for Mass Housing to send a letter to the town for it to proceed. 144 Greenmont Ave. Now, you may remember that as Richardson Farm.
Right.
So that, all the approvals have been made, and they're just trying to tie up some financing, I believe. So
And that's a
That-
private entity doing that?
that is a private entity
That was
doing
supposed
that.
to be senior housing, and 20 years ago, it would have been
Yeah.
senior housing
So
today.
it is senior. It will be senior housing. 60. I think it's less than 60
But we
units
were going
now.
to build it
I know.
through
I know.
us, and it wasn't going to be 60% of your income. It was going to be 30%
Yeah,
of your
and
income.
then there's one more 40B that is getting its final approvals from the town off of Phineas Street. And I believe that is like 20
John McDonough
units.
wants to know how many toilets per
Oh,
unit.
not this again. Not this
I'm
again.
sure that they all have at least 6 toilets per.
6 toilets per unit,
Per unit.
according to him.
So it's going to be, this is just a wonderful project. No,
So Michelle
I don't know.
Clement wants to know, what's the answer? Gordy used the word override, but John didn't think that would work. So what's next? Budget cuts? Unfortunately, you have a community that historically will not vote for operational overrides. So you're really pulling at straws to get that done. And I don't think a majority of the voters in Dracut, that will pull out people to vote. And I still believe that an override for operating expenses will not pass in Dracut. The last one was defeated 2-1, right?
Yeah, and I'm not sure of, I haven't heard of many communities that have voted for an override for operational expenses.
Yeah. What else do we have here? I'm just trying to see if there's anybody else. So we're going to move on from this subject because we're running out of time here real quick. You've got about 7 minutes now. Your 20 minutes has been knocked down to about 7 minutes. Veterans
Is that
Park.
equity? Is that equity?
Veterans Park. Oh, yeah. We got to start that. Diversity and equity
It's
on this.
equality, not equity.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God. We're going to give you equitable time. We're going to give you 7 minutes. Go.
Oh, God. Hang on.
Oh, he's got to take a sip of his drink.
That's coming
Folks,
out of your 7 minutes.
we never have enough time on this show.
No, we don't.
It seems as though
Well,
we
stop taking up my time.
I'm
Okay,
always worried.
so Veterans Park.
Go
all
ahead,
right?
Veterans Park.
Veterans
Reclaiming
Park-
your time.
reclaiming my time.
We're gonna talk
Veterans
about
Park has been in the spotlight for a while now.
Right.
So what had happened is
What is the main subject of this Veterans Park?
the fitness court, which many people may not know about. We're going to make them aware.
Do you have any pictures of it?
We do. So could I pull up the second photograph, which is a diagram of the fitness court, please?
Thought I was going to catch you. I thought I was going to catch you. You got it.
So
There's
this is a
fitness-
diagram of what the court could look like. So basically, Victor Garofalo, the assistant town manager, had been working on this since last July. Okay, he brought it to the CPC for funding, and a member of the CPC had came to me, knowing that I am the vice commander of the Sons of the American Legion in town, with concerns that the veteran community was not made aware or consulted about this. So I brought it to the Legion and its Legion family members, and they had not been made aware of this. So we had a meeting, and we had decided that we were against it for the reason that it was too close to the Veterans Memorial. We have a second photograph. That's another one, John. A map of the area. If we can pull up the map, please. Okay, so if you look in the upper right-hand corner, that little red brick area is the memorial that's there. The white circle above it was the proposed location for where the fitness court was going to go. In actuality, that's between like 23 and 32 feet from the memorial. So we went down there, the Legion, we went down there, we spaced it out. We decided that was far too close to the memorial. It wasn't a respectable distance away. So I contacted Victor, him, myself, and Bob DeRocher, who is the commander of District 5, American Legion, went down and had a meeting with him within 24 to 48 hours, and we worked out the second location in red.
Wow.
to propose it.
So they're going to take some of the field, some of the baseball field?
So I think there's a little green area there between the baseball and the football field, right by the walkway, right to
Yeah.
the right.
Be
I
right in the
believe
walkway.
that's compromisable area.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, why don't we talk about the funding for a minute? Okay.
Well, I got a question about
Sure.
this. Was the neighborhood informed of this?
Not that I know of.
So the neighborhood is going to have a new fitness park.
Yes.
That's going to attract a lot of different people.
That's
a lot
the
of
idea.
different people to work out in, and it's going to be in an area that can't be readily seen from the street for police be able to look and see
Not to
what's
mention
going
it has
on
a
in the park.
gigantic wall on one side too to
A
block view.
gigantic wall. This is, another thing that I'm troubled by. Victor Garofalo, who's the assistant town manager, I'm wondering, Richard, did they ever run this by the Board of Selectmen before they proposed it?
Not that I am aware of.
Right. So
Not that
they're
I'm
just
aware of.
going, as the administrators of the town, to CPC to spend this, I don't know, $500,000 on a fitness park.
So I can get into the funding if
Go
you'd
ahead,
like. So
quickly.
this is from the National Health Campaign in partnership with Blue Cross Blue Shield. The Blue Cross Blue Shield has given us a $50,000 grant.
Wow.
The town had, Victor Garofalo had requested $140,000 from the CPC with an additional $10,000 for that American flag mural that you saw. And they discussed that last night at the meeting, and that was approved of with only one member voting against the mural,
Who voted against it?
Bruce Cody, the chair.
Cheers to Bruce Cody.
Correct.
Cheers to Bruce Cody for that, for being opposed to it. And I know that we've had a discussion before that Bruce is a veteran, so he's not
Absolutely.
opposed to veterans.
Certainly
either.
not.
Okay.
Bruce
and,
knows his stuff and he sticks to his guns, and I respect him for it.
$10,000 for a mural?
Yeah, so the
Is it
idea
gonna be
is that
gold plated?
so the idea is that the whole structure, this is coming from them, that the whole structure is graffiti proof. So it's not something that we can buy and add a mural on afterwards because it'll have some type of coating on it that prevents it from being painted.
There's no such thing, I don't think, Phil, as that you could not buy a coat on that stuff after the fact that it's built. So we're going to go to the contractor, and that contractor is going to add it to the bill, right? So you mean to tell me we couldn't have a graffiti-proof mural put on there afterwards for probably
No, you
less
probably,
money?
well, you probably, I
Well,
would think that you could.
It did sound a little suspicious to me. I looked into the fitness court, and I guess the idea is that you run through the whole thing in 7 minutes with 7 different movements, okay? They have squatting, they have bending, they have agility, they have pull, they have lunge, things like that. You spend a minute on each of these stations.
High-intensity interval training.
Right.
I wonder if there's been any outreach
Nice.
to the community around the area.
I mean, there wasn't
that.
even outreach to the veteran community. So
There was
I
no
doubt
outreach.
there was no outreach until somebody from the CBC came to us. And the reasoning we were given from the town on why we were not contacted, I say we as in the Legion family, obviously I'm not a veteran myself, is because they viewed it as a town issue and a town event, not something that would concern the veterans, even though the park is called Veterans Park.
Yep. So, Angel asked a question. It was part of his grant request when Vets was being remodeled. Oh, I don't know what that means.
Was it part of the original request? I
Oh, no,
don't
she's
think
saying
so.
it was part. She said it was part of his grant request when Veterans Park was being remodeled or updated.
But it didn't get put in?
I don't know what she meant by that.
I don't either.
But that wasn't the only thing at the CPC meeting the other night. Steve Stone, superintendent of schools, went up and he requested funding to install 4 tennis courts, with one of them having double lining for a pickleball court. And the original plan was to have it be built at Parker Ave School. That has since changed. He requested that it be built at the school complex. He requested and received $80,000 for a construction study. Now, the original plan that he had submitted, because
For whoa.
Yes.
$80,000
For a
for
plan.
a construction
Plan.
plan?
yes,
Phil,
Well, that's-
is
I
that
thought
what you
said
make on a
study.
plan?
study.
It was a study, so
It's a study? What does it include plans?
it would include a preliminary plan, I would imagine.
Phil, Are there architectural fees in there?
Certainly not the kind that you would get charged at DATV, but
If somebody was so generous as to give
Yeah.
Right.
their expertise for next to nothing and then get criticized for the next 20 years.
Now, if you think that's bad, the original request included construction costs, which was estimated at $2 million. However, that is expected to go down because that included things like wiring and lights, which
How
we already
could that
have.
go down in this environment? How can an estimate of $2 million go
And
down?
how many tennis courts? Is it 4 sets of courts? Or-
It's 4 tennis courts.
so that's a pretty large project. I mean, it's a decent
crying
size.
out
But my issue was the rubber stamping from the CPC. Personally,
Well,
I
there's
mean,
not-
there was some questioning, but it seemed like everyone just.
Of course, everything's
Approved.
rubber stamped on those most of those committees. And sometimes when Josh Taylor was there, he would push back on issues like
You're
this.
damn
but
right he
no,
would.
But no, they threw him off because you know why, Josh? Because you have the
Critical thinking
unmitigated
skills.
gall. And I would use another word, but the unmitigated gall to question spending and to question it. But you're not part of the team, Josh, so they throw you off the team, or they get you off the team by really harassing you in many ways. Josh Taylor's another one of those guys.
And I mean, to wrap the whole thing up, I will say it was a lot of pleasure in working with Victor. He did listen to our compromise, and we were able to work out something quickly. So I do thank him for that. I just wish we were consulted, firsthand. But hopefully, moving forward,
Were
that
you
won't be an
consulted
issue.
on the fireworks going down there?
Not that I know of.
Okay, not that you know of.
Not that I
Maybe
know
they'll put a skateboard park down there too.
Yeah. Well, the skateboard park that we don't use,
Yeah.
that's unusable, right? If I was sitting on the Board of Selectmen right now, I would be furious that this thing went through or they went by the Board of Selectmen. They never brought up, I don't believe they brought up the proposal to the Board of Selectmen. Of course, 3 members of the board might have already been told about it, which would be a violation of the open meeting laws, and they gave the nod that they were okay with it. And that means that 2 members didn't know about it, which I'm sure probably happened, in my opinion. But you know what? If that happened when I was on the board, I would be absolutely livid. And the community around that area should be up in arms. This is going to be an attraction for a lot of bad things that could happen down there.
That was our main concern.
Yeah.
So certainly.
I mean, I'm not saying that a fitness park isn't good for some area, but I don't know if that's a proper place for it in Veterans Park. So now we're jamming more stuff into Veterans Park in a neighborhood that didn't really want Veterans Park.
Well, I believe the next step is to draft a warrant article on it, and then it will go back to the CPC, to the Finance Committee, and the Select Board, I believe,
Yeah.
for recommendation. And then, of course, the people of Dracut will have their say on town
Interesting.
meeting day.
My quick two
Go ahead.
cents on it.
Yes.
I think it'll be exciting for the first month, and then no one will use it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
my personal opinion.
No,
I
exactly.
fear you may be right, but we'll see.
well, and that I kind of disagree where that red circle was. I don't think that's the proper place for it.
No.
If it's going to be in Veterans Park.
Right.
Where would you say?
I would put it probably closer to the kids' play area.
There was discussion of the back bottom parking lot, that
Yep.
area, but it then moved to between the baseball.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Just because you probably will have parents who are going with their kids, and then the kids can go play while I work out, type of thing, and you can still keep an eye on the kids.
Certainly.
What's the position of the wall? Where is it going to be facing? That's interesting.
Originally
On the
we
side.
were told that the
Walkway?
wall would be facing the entrance of the park, but interestingly enough, at the meeting last night, I believe they said the reverse, that the wall would be facing the football field.
Yeah, which means the walking area will be blocked off from view from anybody.
And people who maybe have kids playing football won't be able to watch their kids play and keep an eye on them while they're exercising.
Right. Exactly. Amazing. Just amazing where this stuff comes from. But
I think a skating rink would have been better.
oh,
than that.
no, we can't put a skating rink in. There's too much going on.
Well,
with
if
the
only
skating
it would freeze.
Oh, yeah. Well, folks, we come to that time.
Oh, no.
We come to that
Oh,
time
here we
where
go.
we need to talk about. National politics. What do you think?
We need to, or we want to?
We want to. We need to because it's in the headlines. Tell me, Gordy, what is your feeling of the activity of the last week of that that guy,
The DA, the brilliant
Alvin
DA.
Bragg,
Yep.
who now is known by everybody across the country as the guy who just tore up the Constitution and threw it away by indicting a former president. First time in history, we now become a third world country.
Yeah, so if we saw that happening in another country, we'd probably put an embargo on the country. We're going to
Right.
put restrictions. We're not going to do
Travel
business-
restrictions, yeah.
right, and all that stuff. But I just find it funny. I believe this judge is the same one that signed the injunction for Mar-a-Lago,
Right.
and his daughter.
Is a campaign person for Kamala
Harris.
Harris.
So, I don't know. I mean, the first thing I would do if I was Trump lawyer is try to get a new judge and try to get it relocated. But I heard they're going to do that, but it's probably going to get moved to Manhattan. So,
Doesn't matter where
Where
they
the-
move it
yeah.
in New York. There's no way.
but this specific judge
Amazing.
is, you got to get rid of this specific judge because,
First of all, I think that eventually it may not be in front of this judge, but I mean it's going to be in front of him. But I don't think this judge will make the determination that this is a nonsense
Right.
indictment. There's no crime here.
Well, I think you'll have the defense attorneys filing a motion to dismiss right away.
Yeah.
But I don't think he'll dismiss it. I think he'll.
and
vote
I
for
don't
it.
know how you
And
can
I-
make, if you make a payment that was in 2017, how you affected the election when you were already president. That happened in 2016, and all this occurred in 2017. So how did you affect the election? That's the whole thing. Is this he used money, campaign funds, to affect the election, the outcome of the election?
But the election was already over, and the
Right,
the
that's not
statute
my
of
point.
limitations for.
Even if the statute of limitations was good, he
Right.
made these payments in 2017, and the election was over in 2016.
But he didn't make the payments.
No.
His supposed fixer lawyer,
Lawyer did it, and he repaid.
Cohn,
yeah.
who is in jail or was in jail for lying.
But he used personal funds to pay back.
And it's just amazing that in this country we're now have sunk to a position where we could, just arrest political opposition.
Yep.
This is going to go over well with some people in Dracut in terms of the political establishment.
Oh, we already have a few.
political
Oh, yeah.
establishment would love to see at least two of us on this panel put in jail or put on an island somewhere that is sinking.
My only question that when this whole thing started and the indictment came out, I had asked somebody if Clay Shaw was going to be a co-conspirator.
Yeah.
Now, if people don't know who Clay Shaw is, he was charged with the murder of John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy, right.
In Louisiana.
Right.
And that was the end of that AG's career.
Yeah, and this is going to be the same thing here, But I think that, Trump, I was a little reticent. I'm a big Trump fan, I have been, and I still am. But I was a little reticent to say that he could get reelected because it's unheard of for a president to be, never happened before in my memory or in my knowledge, that a president was elected, got unelected, and then ran again for a seat and got elected again.
It has happened before.
It did happen. Who was that president? Do you know?
That's right, Grover
Cleveland.
Grover Cleveland. Amazing that even happened, and I hope it happens again. But I think this has rejuvenated the base, number one, and taken those people who were on the fence and pushed them over the fence to Trump, and now has even gone to the effect of those people who think fairly but don't like Donald Trump because of his personality, but they are now saying this political persecution is beyond anything that your imagination could have ever come to.
We're third world country.
Remember Martha Stewart?
Yes.
Remember when she went to prison?
She came out and was doubly popular.
You got it.
Doubly popular.
You got it.
She came out and was doubly popular. So it's going to be interesting to see that. What do you think of the China-Russia partnership recently? I mean, is the Biden administration just totally dead, or are they just sleeping on the job, Gordy?
What else? He's been sleeping on the job for 2 years.
Yeah.
What else is new?
Yeah, but are you scared by this? Are you?
Absolutely. How can you not be?
I mean, here's two countries and two leaders that were dictatorship type thing, socialist, communists, but hated each other. Right?
And they have the new currency. They're trying to replace the dollar.
Well,
with
the dollar is
the
gone
yen.
in some
Oh,
in
yes.
several countries already.
no, it's the
And-
Dix or Nix. What do they call it now? They have a new.
No, it's going to be the
there's a new
yuan.
currency.
They're going to represent. They're going to have the yuan, which they're going to. That's a Chinese dollar, I believe.
Oh, I thought it was the yen.
No, the yen.
No, I
is
think they're going to
Japanese.
create a
Oh, is
new.
it?
I heard that they're going to create a new dollar.
Well, that would be
It'll be a
interesting.
communist
A globalist dollar.
for all communist countries.
Yeah, but the one is so manipulated by the Chinese
Right,
government.
government.
I can't see how anybody would take any
Yeah.
credibility with it. To some degree, Russia has no place to go to sell its oil but China. And
Right.
China is more than willing to pay pennies on the dollar for it to keep Putin busy. So I suppose to some degree, they're almost two drunk men trying to help each other walk straight.
Can you tell me that anybody with an ounce of brains, and I say this with tongue in cheek, and somebody will say to me, well, how can you support Trump? Because I believe in his policies, not his personality. But I want to know, with anybody with an ounce of brain, how can they not say that Joe Biden is a total abomination? Is that the economy's in the crapper? Well,
Inflation's
inflation
still
is
high.
out of control. Interest rates are out of control, and the banks aren't paying you anything on your
Banks
dollars,
are
and
failing.
they're using your
Banks
money.
are failing.
Banks are failing. Crime is out of control, and that brings us to the election of Chicago. Last night they elected this.
Let's go,
dope.
Brandon.
This dope. They elected this guy last night who's worse than Lori Lightfoot. How could you possibly do that? Worse. This is him. Go, Brandon.
You know what? That's him showing how much he's going to increase the murder rate in Chicago by about that much.
Brandon
He
Johnson.
said he's gonna, when they get a call for a domestic dispute, he's gonna send a social worker.
That's good.
Good luck with that. Where the guy just beat his wife or
Good luck
stabbed
with
her
that.
or whatever, and then that person comes in and then he attacks that person.
Unbelievable. And the loser of that race was a guy by the name of Paul Vallis, who was leading early on, but he lost. And you know, I don't even know much about him. All I know is that he was for funding police
Yes.
and for cleaning up crime. And the other guy, let's go Brandon.
Yeah.
Brandon Johnson,
Yep.
who's got to be related to Biden somehow, because he now you know has been always for defunding them. As you said,
Yep.
he wants to send social workers to the rescue of a domestic violence.
And now OPEC has cut production by 50%. So
500.
welcome to $5 gas.
Well,
$5,000.
and it typically goes up as the summer comes in. So I mean, we've already seen the
It's
the
going to be
pricing going
$5,
up.
so be prepared.
Well,
to pay
folks, I
$5.
just wanted to say to you that much to the chagrin of my nemesis and my adversaries who called WCAP about 3 weeks ago, posing as Phil Tebow, my good friend, and saying that, did you hear that John Zimini had passed away? Well, guys, I think after tonight, you know that he's back.
Taking your
and
calls
a
in
resurrection from the dead. And I'm here and I'm not going away. Folks, it's been nice being back. It's been great to be back on the farm, as they say. And we wish you have a nice week. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another hot show here at Dracut Access Television on What's Happening Dracut. Until next time, when it's Wednesday and it's 6:30, it's
What's happening, Dracut?
Dracut?
good night, folks. Have a great day.